It's about the size of the Lord of the Rings, depending on which edition.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't see you.
Okay. It's probably taking a moment to get up.
I wonder if you're having bandwidth issues. You might want to try chalking down your streaming settings again.
Yeah.
Because you did go pretty blurry when we were on the call earlier.
Okay. Alright, but y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Alright, is this on again? I need to change the resolution. Shoot, this is really annoying.
In this video, I'll show you how to set up and manage live streams in YouTube's Live Control Panel. We've built a brand new stream workflow in live.
Are we live?
No,
Okay.
this is really frustrating.
If we're not live, I'm gonna play some My Little Pony app. Any of you ever played that? This thing?
Oh, the
If we're not
yeah,
live,
the
I'm
one
gonna
where
play
you
some My
have a
Little
little
Pony.
playbill and
Mm-hmm.
good things.
They've added story modes into it and stuff like that, so it's not just saving up to buy ponies now. It's actually interesting.
I got it back when it first came out, and I quit around the time someone did the math on how long it would take to buy all the main sects to complete the storyline, and I'm like, yeah. But
They really cut that down. I mean, like Rainbow Dash was 300 gems, they cut it down to 60 or something like that. So
okay.
a lot of ponies you just can't buy anymore. Because it's, oh yeah, we'll use this pony for a story, maybe. Right? As a reward for maybe a little. Like you've not used this pony 5 years now. And also you hit a point where you can't find with bits anymore. So I have 24 million bits, but I just can't do anything with. Ponies don't bits anymore.
One saving grace of paper money. At least you can technically use it for something.
It's cheaper than buying firewood.
Hey, you know, with the way that toilet paper is, going these days.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell me about that. We were over prepared, and still I'm starting to get kind of a. We're still good, but like in the back of my mind, I was like, I have not seen toilet paper on that is not like, in my house in a really long time. We've been to get groceries a couple of times during quarantine, and like, there's nothing. The rest of the store is fine. Like they haven't ransacked anything else, but that is just gone.
And most I've ever seen in the toilet paper towel. I mean,
Alright.
thankfully my wife and I are a little stocked up, but paper towels are running out. I don't worry about.
Is a YouTube stream working?
I do see on the YouTube stream you going through your Discord chat.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Okay. Let's get back to it then.
Okay.
Are you recording, by the way, in case you want to post it separately from the live chat or from the live stream later?
YouTube, I believe, saves all my streams.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah. So I would like to post this for people who haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll send that to y'all after. Okay.
So should we get all of our swearing out now?
Yes.
Because I can say all the George Carlin words and we're alive.
I think we're live.
Oh, okay. Here I go then. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. No, we're live. Okay.
Cuss.
Are we live?
I think so. Let me check.
I don't know.
Looks like it.
Oops.
If I go out to your channel screen, I see a little live badge on it. Let's see
Okay,
if it actually...
awesome. Yes.
Same.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yes, we briefly introduced ourselves and then we had some streaming troubles. So sorry about that, but let's get started, eh?
And they do say A. One of the Canadian, and yep, it's just A.
Eh? All right, so I'm just gonna go through each little bit of writing and ask y'all thoughts on it, and I'll add to it. So I'll start with this. You have to have ideas to write. So how do y'all come up with ideas?
Can I go on a limb preliminary and say that this is the worst question that you always get when you write things, and that like you never know entirely what to say to it, even if eventually you do get an answer?
Sometimes it's the weirdest stuff. Sometimes it'll be like a pre-existing idea that I have of like, oh, I can Pony. That's what TV was, actually. I wasn't sure about writing him, but then I thought of the line, punch Celestia in the face. I'm like, this is what has to happen. Sometimes it's, I saw a bit of the show, or I saw something or other, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can work with that. Just the idea of, okay, what if? That's always part of what fanfiction is. My story of the Storm and the Scorpion ended up that way just because I was watching the My Little Pony movie, and I'm like, well, what if this happened? What if I put this character here, and so on and so forth? So it's no one thing. It's just a wide variety of things that just happens.
So you draw your ideas from a lot of different sources, and you never know where they're going to come from, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as a title. I thought of the title Princess Celestia Gets Mugged, and
wrote it.
From there, I didn't have anything lined up about it. I just, oh, this is a funny title. I have to write this story. Let's see what that is.
All right.
And see the results.
Yeah.
How about you, Horizon?
Yeah, it definitely happens like that. There's just going to be bolts of lightning that, strike, and something gets stuck in your brain and you have to do it. So in terms of concrete advice to give to people, I would say the most important thing is be prepared. Like, even carry around a little notebook or something, or, set it down next to where you are normally, just hanging around, so that when you get that idea, you can get it down somewhere, because it is very, very rare for the inspiration and the momentum to align, and you want to make sure that you have things that you can, put onto the page when you're ready to write.
And you have to start writing as soon as possible when you get that idea, even if you just write 2 sentences. It's very easy to get started from there, and it's a good solid foundation of, okay, I have these 2 sentences written, now I can build off of them and make the story go.
Yeah, like, people think that, you think that the Notes app on your phone is going to be bad for storytelling. Let me tell you, it is way more useful than you think it is.
Yeah.
To just get basic information.
This goes till 2. Yeah.
Oh, it's 2:30 where I am.
Yeah. I find also that with at least some things, again, as you guys said, it's all over the place. It's like a lot of different things. I find that sometimes it's a process of going from reading about and ruminating on something completely unrelated. I have a series of stories that go back to a random dive through Wikipedia on a thing called monotheism. Not monotheism, I'm sorry. Monophysitism, which is an old philosophical theological thing from 17, 18, 1900 years ago.
Nerd.
And just me reading that article and reading about all the going on wiki dive because I was bored, like kind of blossomed into like half a dozen stories, because thinking about those concepts eventually became thinking about like how those concepts would work in a different world, or how a different world would adapt to them, or like it's one of those things where if you have an active mind that is trained to think about the world around you and thinking about why the world around you is the way it is, a lot of the same mind that helps the old natural philosophers will help you as a writer.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from all of y'all is that ideas come from lots of sources. You should have some method, be it a notebook or your notes app. I personally will use voice to text on my notes app a lot, or put stuff in Google Drive, or just pull up Fanfiction and quickly put down a story idea. You never know when inspiration strikes, and it can come from a lot of places. So basically, view the world with open mind and open eyes. Okay,
Yep.
So it's time to write. What is y'all's writing process? I'll go first if you want.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll go first, sure. So when I write, I have an idea, and I'll come up with like bits of dialogue, because my stories tend to have a lot of dialogue, and I'll write those bits of dialogues like in the order of where I think they appear. And I basically use a method I call islands. I start with islands of text, like, okay, this part's going to be near the beginning, this is how it will end, this is something I want near the climax, and I have these islands of story, and I figure out what do I need to connect those islands, and I build out like bridges or levees or causeways, whatever you want to call it, until I start connecting those islands of text, and then I end up with a full story, and then I can rearrange stuff if I need, or I can add more to the end, add more to the beginning, write an epilogue. But basically, I don't write like that much in order. I write what's coming to me first, and that way, you know, whatever I think of, I can just put it down and then connect all the bits later. So that's what I do. How about y'all?
I've heard of people doing that before. I've heard several times about people kind of working sort of like non-linearly.
Now, that might work better for short stories like mine, which tend to be under 3,000, usually even under 2,000 words. I imagine if you're writing like a multi-100,000 word epic, like BronyWriter and Cynewulf do more than once in a while, then you need a bit more of a more linear system, I imagine.
See, I just take an idea, I guess you'd call it a boulder, and I just push it down the hill. And then see where it goes. And that, you know, a boulder running down the hill is not the easiest thing to change the direction of. So it's very much it's a, I don't want to say mixed bag, but it's a dangerous way to go about it, because there have been times when, oh yeah, I have this great idea, and then the boulder's rolling down the hill, and I write that dumb idea, and then people go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This is not as good as a character, like the Chrysalis arc of Life of an Brony. I wish I could have done that one so much better. Everyone was upset about it, and rightfully so, and then I rewrote a couple chapters, and I was like, that's what it should have been. There you go. That's more in line with the character. Like, yeah. So it's a mixed bag. It's good and bad. It's good because you just keep going. It's bad because sometimes it's a little difficult to deviate from the rocks and the trees and the people in the way of the boulder. So
I've gone back and forth between planning and not planning. For shorter fiction, I tend to do...
never plan.
Yeah, I tend to not really plan. Now, the caveat there is that, like, we're talking, like, formally, like, doing an outline. That's something I'm not really doing. But I do plan in the sense that before I sit down to write this thing, that thing has taken up real estate in my head for some time. Like, the shape of that story has already sort of been a thing in my head for a while. So once I actually get down to writing it, whether I've written any kind of plan out or not, I have an idea, even if I can't necessarily articulate that idea, about what is going to happen with these words. If that makes sense. Like, mere sheer repetition, I mean, you can kind of get to this point of, you know this outline, even though an outline doesn't necessarily exist, because it exists up here. I'm not sure how applicable that is, because it does kind of require a lot of that sort of active engagement, and there's a lot to be said for momentum. Like, especially with longer stories, I had joked before, but it's not really a joke. When you get past a certain point of like threshold of words with a long form narrative, the story starts to write itself, and that's not necessarily a good thing. The momentum of that story will just propel itself forwards, and it feels as if you can coast now, but the reality is that you actually have to work harder to avoid that momentum crashing you into missing out on stuff you didn't want that you wanted to do, or like doing stuff that you had no interest in.
So basically, you're saying,
yeah, like I said, the boulder.
Yeah, exactly. The boulder works really well.
That it the writing comes pretty naturally, but you still need to be, while you're sort of writing, not on autopilot, but kind of effortlessly. You need to be looking ahead and making sure you can steer the story the right way with enough time.
Yeah, and even in more minute cases, I feel like to some degree, and this might change from person to person. I feel like to some degree, you need to be able to ask yourself, what am I doing? And have some kind of answer. Maybe not the perfect answer, but something.
An idea.
If you are in the middle of a paragraph and you stop and you think, what am I doing? And your answer is, then in short fiction, you might be okay, maybe. If you have a really vivid image, you have a really vivid emotion, like there's something you're getting at. But chances are that you're not going to be okay. That you are going to get completely lost in the weeds. And avoiding that is important, not so much because of that story, but because getting lost in the weeds on a story that you originally liked is incredibly demoralizing. And avoiding it is kind of a good idea.
Yeah. Horizon, how about you?
For my part, I've found that my experience has been that there is basically a spectrum. That at one end is people who write completely by the seat of their pants, and at the other end is people who write an outline that is their entire story, and then they basically just add words to it. And it's interesting that you use the island metaphor for your writing, because I've always done something very similar, except I have, backcountry hiking experience, so I tend to think of it more as like backcountry route finding, where you've got landmarks and you are planning to stop at each of those landmarks, but are allowing the story to go where it needs to go in between. And I find that that's a good compromise, because the danger of pseudo-pantsing is the boulder, running away with itself that the rest of you have been talking about. The danger of overly plotting in advance is that the story becomes lifeless, because you're hitting exactly what you expected to hit, and you're not giving yourself the opportunity to tell the interesting stories that pop up along the way. And so you're sort of steering in between those two margins and trying to find the best possible narrative in the middle.
Yeah. I'd like to add another way of looking at this, and y'all can jump on this, is called top-down versus bottom-up writing. Top-down is when you have a big outline, you know what's happening, you figure out stuff ahead of time, and you're saying, okay, this is what I want to have happen, how do I have it happen? Bottom-down, or bottom-up, you're starting with the characters, what they like, what they dislike, how they act, what they might be saying. You're starting with characterization, you're starting with like all the little details, and you see how the little details combine into a bigger story. Bottom-up stories tend to be more creative, tend to feel like they have more life, but they can also feel like there's less direction, there's less sense of like overarching plot structure, and they can be a bit all over the place, whereas top-down stories tend to feel like they're very well organized, but can feel a bit too lifeless if you're not careful. So a good method, depending on how you like to write, You can use both or try to find something in the middle like Horizon was talking about.
I would want to say, as a sort of caveat there, as a corollary there, that like those aren't necessarily always that way. It's a tendency to feel like heavily plot stories have a tendency to drift toward into sort of the lifeless by the numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be. You know, like that's still the weird thing about writing is that like everything can be a way, and it often is that way. But there's sort of a nebulous, but it could not be that way. Kind of that, this is a bad idea. But any writer work there saw is like, but part of me kind of could see how you could make it work. And then, kind of that thing. Like, I don't want that people to think that, like, I don't want people to think that you have to pick between lifelessness or out of control. Like, you have more power than you think. You got agency.
Okay. BronyWriter, can you say something?
Yeah.
Okay, we at least hear you.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Okay. You see?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, I don't see you, but I hear you, and that's good enough for me.
Do the rest of you guys see me?
You just came back on for me.
Okay. I
All right.
Plugged in and plugged the camera back in.
Do any of you want to talk briefly about how you get around something called writer's block?
Sometimes you just write. Sometimes exercise is not too bad. I mean, one of the things I did sometimes is I'll I'd take my dog out for a walk or push my son around in a stroller and just puzzle it out from there. Like, okay. Because writer's block is very often, I just don't know where to go. Although sometimes writer's block is, I just care right now. But yeah, exercise, like getting away from the chair, removing yourself from the situation for a little while, and then puzzling everything out while you're walking or doing whatever, really helps out. Does not help out just throwing on the new video game you got. That does not help out a bit. I just got Arkham Knight, and I'm like, I've beaten this game twice already. I don't need to play. I need to start writing. Nah, this is too good.
All right. How about y'all?
Well, as far as me, I have a plan, and it doesn't work terribly well. I hesitate to recommend it, but it's the one that gets me through. It's the 3 Ds of writer's block. Despair, then drinking, then deadlines.
Well, the drinking part, huh?
So are you going for sort of a panic as motivating force?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to say, if you just want something that'll inspire you to go write quickly, I'd recommend there's both the write-offs, which you can find at writeoff.me, and there's pony write-offs, there's occasionally She-Ra write-offs, and then there's general fiction write-offs, and there you either have to write like a less than 1,000 word story or a 2,000 to 5,000 word, or I think it's 2,000 to 7,000 word story, and you only have a few days to do it, and it really pushes you. And Gap Jaxie has a Discord server organized for speed writing contests where you have like an hour to write as fast as you can on a certain topic. Those are both great ways to just get yourself to write something.
Does anyone have a link to Jaxie's Discord server we can paste in the chat?
I
I don't have that immediately at hand.
I can find it. It's My Little Story, right?
I think so. But yeah, no, the write-offs, the Discord server, contests in general, and in fact, Fanfiction is kind of making a much bigger deal of promoting contests these days, which is great because it's both incentive to have a deadline and also potentially to pick something up out of the effort you put in.
Yeah, it's great. Fanfiction's done a good job with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to posting my story for the April Horror contest. I think I have a decent idea for it.
Yeah, I need to
it's
write
hard
that.
To write with a 1-year-old. Because, by the time you've put him to bed and everything's done for the day, it's like 11, and you're like, yeah, the video games are so much easier. I just gotta move my fingers a little bit, not put any thought into it. And actually writing. I mean, you feel bad when you're writing and your son's not asleep or something. You feel like you're doing something, but yeah, I'll find the time.
For me, I'm constantly on my phone. I have a bit of executive dysfunction, or it's a mix of ADHD and depression and anxiety. I have a hard time getting myself to do stuff. A lot of times I'll come up with ideas when I'm forced to not have my phone around. Like if I'm trying to get back to sleep or something, or like if I'm just exercising or going on a hike. When you remove external distractions, it gives your brain time to work through things, and you'll be like, oh, it's a good idea. Oh, I should do that. So really, if you find yourself not knowing what to do, try just removing yourself from stimulation for a little bit.
Yeah, and another thing that's good is don't write in a comfortable place. I mean, don't, I'm going to write lying down on a hardwood floor, but if you write on your bed or something like that, or in a comfy chair, you're eventually going to get complacent, I guess you could say. I've done so much of my writing at the front desk at work. In 2013, I was an RA, and we'd have long desk shifts and just write. That's when I got all my stuff done, and I've started picking up a little more now that I sell mattresses, and there's not a ton to do. So I have my laptop, and I just write. They let you get away with it.
Writing at work, tisk, tisk, tisk.
And Xboxes, it's insane. But yeah, I get a lot of writing done at work, which with the quarantine going on, and then the contest, I'm like, how am I gonna get the time? Because at work, it's 9 hours of, I don't have anything to do.
Yep.
Busy days.
You just gotta make yourself write. And I have a hard time getting myself to write. But honestly, the hardest part's starting. Once you get a few sentences down, you don't want to stop because you have that, like you were talking about, momentum. Get yourself writing, and the writing will come.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be about the story you're saying. You have the page up on Fanfiction, and you're writing about Twilight doing this and Twilight doing that, and I'm not sure what to do. And just start writing random things, just to get the brain continued focus of writing, and then if your fingers are moving with typing, and you're trying to think through what you're typing, then, okay, I can have her do this. Alright, backspace, and there you go.
Okay. Did you want to say something real quick, Cynewulf?
I was going to say, I found it, motivating yourself to write. It's a really big struggle with me. It's actually been since I cut down on my smoking a lot, was that I had tied writing to the trance-like state of when you're doing a thing that's really easy to repeat. When you get stuck in that sort of you're reading a thing or doing something, you gnaw on chips, you're just eating chips, or you're doing something that's repeatable. Mindless, yeah. I really kind of trained my mind into associating writing with that state, so that I needed to be in that state to write. And having had to relearn that entirely, as I could no longer stay at the coffee house down the street for 7 hours with a pet, is difficult. But I've also found that the one good part about that habit was that by making it something that I could do casually, that didn't feel pretentious, writing became easier to want to do, because it was just a thing you did. It wasn't it wasn't something you set up as this appointment, a rendezvous at some dispute barricade. It's just a thing that
part of your routine.
That'd be so easy. Yeah, it's so much easier when it's just a thing you do.
Yeah.
So something I did once a couple times is I plug my headphones into my phone and just put the same song on repeat.
Well, I can't do that, but I will put a pony radio station on, or a chiptune station on, or something, but I can't do the same song on repeat.
It was Lights by Ellie Goulding. I must have listened to that 500,000 times getting a chapter.
Wow. All right, I'd like to move on. Let's briefly talk about, because we are running a little behind schedule because my tech issues, sorry. Let's talk about editing. So you've written something. How do you or how do other people help you make it better?
Run that by me one more time.
Editing. How do we take a story from good to great? I'll start with something that Present Perfect, who's another great author and great reviewer, actually said, which I find interesting. He likes listening to stories a lot. He listens to a lot of audiobooks. Fanfiction, at least the desktop version, I can't remember if the phone version has it, has an auto-read feature. If you have Fanfiction read your story back to you, any typos or weird, like, words or weird grammar things, when it reads it to you, you will hear, oh, that sounds very wrong, and you'll be able to fix it. So that's one thing you can do if you have a hard time catching mistakes in your writing.
Well, I'll jump in with both feet on this one because I have previously worked as a newspaper copy editor, so I have a great deal of editing experience. And my advice is that's not actually the sort of editing you should be focusing on. If you are trying to improve your story, yes, the surface polish is going to be important, but it is also the easiest thing to do, and it is also the easiest thing to get other people to do for you. So what really makes a story better is having someone besides you just read through it and say, I don't understand why this happened, or it seems like this character was acting weird, or the high level stuff, the feedback about the sorts of the story that makes sense in your head, and you need to figure out like how that's not translating to what people are reading. And you can sometimes do that yourself. If you don't have a editing buddy, then you can set it aside for a week and read it again later on, or you can do what Tramp was just saying of have it dictated to you, because that forces you to kind of look at it in a different way. But one of the great things about the fanfiction community is that there are so many people here committed to stories and good stories, and it's so easy to find other people whose writing you enjoy, offer to pre-read something for them, see if they'll pre-read something back if you shoot it to them later, and just start building up the connections that give you a chance to take a second look at your story.
Yeah, networking will help
and
you.
Honestly, I found that reading other people's stuff can really help improve your own stuff. Because you see, oh, this person is really good at writing Rainbow Dash. Yeah, the way I wrote it, Rainbow Dash really wouldn't praise that thing like that. So, I mean, I say that kind of thing is more important than, hey, did I put the comma in the right spot? Doesn't matter if I put the comma in the right spot if, yeah, that sounds nothing like Rainbow Dash. Which will hurt your story a lot more than the comma should have gone there.
Yeah, and also, you can do editing at different phases. You want what Horizon was talking about, the higher levels ideas, plot arcs, overall characterization, setting up like cliffhangers or setting up Chekhov's guns. Those sorts of things you want to have figured out earlier than later. So don't save that for the end. After you have a rough draft, even if it's not quite complete, get someone else who can say, yeah, I think this overall works. And then you're not like writing something, polishing it, and then someone says, oh, wow, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, that wouldn't work. And you're having to cut all these sections of writing that are beautiful, but don't work with the story.
I hate the phrase "kill your darlings." I hate it for a lot of reasons.
Fun.
It's for a lot of reasons, but one of them is because it kind of misses sort of the emphasis, which is on how much you loved this thing, and not on kind of the story itself. I'm really glad to hear someone who actually worked in like a news, like in journalism, kind of agree with me on this idea that it's a little, for fiction, what you should be focusing on is more of the reading for content over reading for mechanics. Because mechanics, I mean, yeah, if your story is unreadable because every word is misspelled, then you got problems. But your problems are probably deeper than fiction craft at that point. If you're talking about writing good fiction, it's more about, can I give this to a person? And can they, A, understand what on earth has happened, but B, does this do anything to or for them? like, and it doesn't have to like change the world necessarily, but is there any kind of affect? Is there any kind of, has this thing on this paper interacted with that person in any meaningful sense? Because that to me is the most important part. And so when I would get people editing stuff, my question was not how good are my grammar mechanics, because I could do that on my own, and I could also get somebody to look over in 5 minutes for me. You know, you could do that really quickly and really efficiently. My question was always, can you read this, and what parts of this do not interact with you in a way that is beneficial or interesting? And when you start cutting stuff based on that, your writing improves, like leaps and bounds. You get rid of so much garbage that you thought was good that nobody else thinks is good.
Mm-hmm.
I will add to that that is another benefit of groups such as Gapjaxies or the Write-Offs, or to a lesser extent the fanfiction contests, because they not only provide you with a deadline, but there's also a strong tradition of reading each other's stories and providing critical feedback in those groups that gives you a lot of this stuff almost for free. It's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say, as far as like an author to read, if you want to improve your editing, if you want to see how to structure stories in a large scale and do a really good job of it, read Skywriter's stories. He does an amazing job at the high level structure of how the story rises and falls and foreshadows and stuff. And see what works in other authors' stories and apply it to your own.
Yeah.
Alright, so first of all, I want to run something by y'all really quick. So technically we have 11 minutes left. Do you want to just keep talking till 2 my time, whatever time it is for y'all? I say y'all a lot, I'm sorry. And then we can do question and answers afterwards for like 15 minutes, and the people who want to watch the next panel can go to the next panel, and anyone who wants to ask us questions can ask us questions. Does that work for y'all?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. So we've done, I listed on my YouTube live stream, I dropped a link for a bunch of editing groups. So you've brainstormed, you've written, you've edited, now you've published. So, well, not quite. Would y'all like to chip in your advice on getting the story ready for publishing, i.e. the short description, long description, cover art, genre tags, stuff like that?
Oh gosh, such a bad question to ask me.
I'd say 90% of the cover art on the site comes from Google.
Or Derpy Brew.
And 8% of it comes from random picture on DeviantArt, and like maybe 2% is someone drew this for me, or I drew this for myself. 1.5% is someone drew this for me, and then 0.5% is I drew this for myself. I have 0 artistic talent, so...
I have a few really horribly drawn cover arts that I drew.
You take that back, they're great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cynewulf.
They fit those stories so well.
You saw my stuff, like, they'd go, did you have a seizure while you were drawing this? And post-pixel, you posted it anyway? I'm an epileptic, I'm allowed to make that joke. And then I'd be forced to go, yes. Because that's a more legitimate excuse than, nah, this is my best. I'm a writer, I'm not an author, but, yeah, Google. I know it doesn't sound great, but Google. And also, it'll help you get more views. A good cover art that people see will be better than just blank thing with a description on it. Barely matters how good the description is. If you don't have an interesting cover art to draw it in.
Yeah.
It's like having a movie poster with just the description of the movie on it, and then no poster of the characters or the situations or anything like that.
Yeah.
If I heard, oh, this movie's coming out, no poster for it, then it's not going to be quite as... draw me in quite as much.
Alright. Horizon, Cynewulf?
Well, publishing time is when you want to get out the magnifying glass and, make sure all the commas are in the right place and just 100% pour over all the tiny little details of things like your description, because that's your first impression. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I have been drawn in or turned away by a story's description and the way that it presents itself. Because that's where you're establishing trust with your readers, is that's where you're establishing, I have written this thing and I'm going to make it worth your time.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be some elaborate thing. I mean, the description for Princess Celestia Hates Tea is seriously a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Or
that's all it takes.
for Australia, Rainbow Dash flies east.
Read that.
I think like that one works, even though it's like it shouldn't in a way because it's nothing there, but it works because it is just specific enough to make you want to say why, along with this. Like it works. Like if you just had that, it wouldn't work. If you just had the picture, it wouldn't work. The combination of description and picture is what sells a story a lot of times on fanfic, because that in and of itself is a whole another artistic endeavor you have sort of stapled on to your writing, which is itself an artistic endeavor. Like this is another bit of I have done some art here of marrying an image to words. I don't have tips so much to have two specific things to not do. Do not be like me, especially when I was younger. If you're going to Google for images, try to find their DeviantArt or their Tumblr or wherever that the person did it. I'm not going to say like all artists, obviously, but a lot of artists are totally fine with you using their art for covers. A lot of them will have in the description just sort of a blank statement of, hey, just, I don't care if you use this for something or save it or whatever. A lot of them will say, just, link back to me or something like that. Don't be like me. Please do that. Please, fanfic has made it even easier than it used to be to do that. And it's super easy to just, slot that into this thing. Fanfic's got a little thing where it's, source, and that's all you gotta do. Don't use art that people have expressed they don't want you to use. One, because it's kind of
tacky.
Yeah, it's disrespectful, and anything that you could have, the impression you were going to make, the trust that you were building with that description, is really undercut when people find out that you use that art without against someone's will. But also because they will occasionally contact you. I had art that I found that I was not able to find a source for. And being younger and stupider than I am now, I used it for a story of it wasn't We See Through a Mirror Darkly. Actually, it might have been. It was the one with Twilight on a spaceship. Anyway, I used a really great piece of art. What I did not know was that art was actually from a Russian animation, which is in the comments of that fic, and if I ever remember the name. And I highly recommend, if you ever happen to read that story, you look through the comments, and you see that discussion that I had with that person, go watch it, because it's really great. I do not remember the name of either the story or the animation right now.
The Russian bronies do some great stuff.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of stories done in Russian. I used to have a little cadre of Russians who read everything that I did. It was really cool. They were the best.
Nice.
They're really creative.
But all the TV Alicorn stuff is from a Russian artist.
But I used it, and they were okay with me using the screenshot. But what I didn't know that it was from an actual project. I got blindsided by the fact that this person was saying, "Hey, isn't this?" And it was really awkward. Do not be stupid. Just attribute things. The second one is, please, 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 if you ever commission artwork from somebody, do not spend a ton of money for a story that has not already succeeded. I mean, you can if you really want to and you believe in it. It's a passion project. Don't listen to me. Just do it. I spent about 50, 60 bucks or more on art for a Fallout Equestria story that no one read, and nothing feels worse. Yeah, I did not want to write again for a month or two, and a lot of that feeling came from the fact that I jumped the gun and spent money on this cover art that is really good. Like, it's not the artist's fault. They did such a good job on the cover art for Last Crusade. Just would absolutely get Backlash 91 my money literally any day. I have given him a lot. But don't spend money on something unless you've made peace with the fact that getting commissioned cover art is not it's not a silver bullet. You know, you still got to write a good description. You still have to have a little bit of luck. You've still got to market yourself. Don't get lazy with a good picture, but find a good one anyway.
Okay, so I'd like to finish up with a little idea about publishing. You want your short story description and your long story description basically be like an elevator pitch, basically a quick way to sell the story. You want, someone to read this and go, huh, I like that idea. And if you can't come up with a way to make your story sound interesting, then you probably want to look at, well, why is my story not sound interesting? But basically, you're selling your story in the short story description and long story description. And as Horizon said, I think it was Horizon who said this, that's what makes or breaks whether someone's going to read your story. It is so sad when you read a short story description and you find a typo. It's like, this doesn't bode well for the rest of the story. All right, so we got a couple more minutes. So you've published your story. What can you, very briefly, what can you do next? How do you get your story out there?
Part of it is timing, honestly. At the very bottom of the screen on Fanfiction, it'll show you how many people are on the site at a given time. And you don't want to publish your story at 3 in the morning when there are 900 people on the site. Okay, there are 1,700 people on the site now, or 1,500 or whatever. That's the time to publish, because that's when most of the people are actually on the site. Obviously, there aren't as many people as there used to be on Fanfiction, but the timing of it is still really important.
I think in the years that you and I have both been here long enough, I think that we've heard multiple different versions of when the best time was, because it's changed.
Yeah.
Kind of thing you have to keep abreast of, because it does change over time.
All right, so really quick, we're about done with our time slot. We'll stay on for questions for a bit. Thank you for joining us. I'm Super Trampoline. We have BronyWriter, Horizon, and Cynewulf. Looney's con schedule has links to their fanfictions. I encourage you to read their stories. They're all really great. Thank you all for joining us despite the technical difficulties, and hope to see you again. We'll stick around for questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. So we can stick around. If no one has any questions, we can just chat for a little. Ask any questions you want. Y'all. All right, we had at least 2 people who really appreciated our panel, so that's cool.
Yay.
Cool. Better than 0.
Yeah. I was worried there were going to be like 3 people watching, but I mean, even now, 11 people are watching. Let me type.
It's a lot more tame than the last panel I did, where we spent about half of it in the most weirdest questions I've ever had in my life. But that's what happens when you do a panel specifically on queer stuff and funny fanfic. You get the most interesting questions.
Yeah.
Be sticking around.
Yeah, I imagine this is probably a little bit general of a panel to get anything quite that spicy. But
Yeah.
That sounds fascinating, though.
Oh,
Plus, I don't know if any of us write anything terribly graphic either. I don't really. Secret Life of Rarity got kind of graphic, but even as I've edited more down quite a bit, because the story is more important than how she cuts people up. So
I've written a few, but not too many.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we'll stick around. If no one asks any questions in like the next 5 minutes, then we can end it. But other than my technical issues, I'd say that went pretty well.
Yeah, it did.
And
Yeah.
I enjoyed listening to y'all talk about, your processes.
It's funny that you asked about editing because the dark secret is that I had an editor, Morning Sun.
Oh yeah, her.
Oh, not Morning Sun. Sun Chaser. Something, I think it was Sun Chaser's name. For the first 7 chapters of The Night's Passing, but it was taking so long, and we were just not very good at communicating. And so eventually, I just stopped sending him links, which I feel really bad about. And having grown up since then, I would have actually had a conversation with him, but I didn't because I'm stupid. But I just, from there on, I had almost zero editing for the next 400,000 words.
Oof.
And it was such a bad idea. Oh my god, I don't know how I survived. 400,000 words of completely irresponsibly unsupervised shenanigans.
Don't leave Cynewulf unsupervised.
Not a chaperone in sight.
This is why I'm married, so I'm never unsupervised. I love my wife. She's great. Couldn't do it without her.
Does she read your stories?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Not every single word I've ever written, but she's read some stuff, yeah.
Nice. One of my partners is dyslexic, but I'll read them stories of mine sometimes. And other people's stories, because they're generally better than stories of mine.
Yeah. I edit a lot for Shangar Kordath and Panidius. Other two people I edit a lot for.
Shangar writes a lot.
He does, yeah.
I remember that.
He lives pretty close to me, so we
I
hang
can
out.
never remember that dude's name, so I would just make up a series of ever more ridiculous things that happen to sound vaguely like it.
He's
the guy, the Winning Pony guy, Chimichanga, something.
Yeah, I think I asked him once where it came from, and I don't remember. Some online group. I don't remember. My name is about as simple as you can get. Like I said, I wish I'd picked something a little more creative than BronyWriter. But it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
It sticks out, I guess. In an odd way, it sticks out even though it's so bland, uncreative. Which I've lampooned a couple times.
Yeah. I still need to... Speaking of lampooning, BronyWriter, I don't remember... I don't know if you remember, but one time when we were rooming with Pinstroke, he was like, BronyWriter, you have really long toenails.
Oh, fuck
I still need to write a Brony's toenails in Equestria.
No, don't you...
I didn't even finish it. I started writing it.
Don't you dare. I will have you... something or other. I have cloud on the side.
Let me see if I can find it. Toenail.
Don't.
A Brony's toenails in Equestria.
Will regret it.
BronyWriter, you have really long toenails. Pinstroke.
Will regret it.
I will write your OC into my horror fic.
Please do. Let me show you the beautiful cover art I did for that. Now I'm inspired to finish writing that story, or at least the first 2 episodes. Alright, well, it doesn't look like we're getting any questions, and I have painting to do, so thank you all so much. Even though we had some issues, I had a lot of fun. Anything y'all want to add before I end this call?
Oh,
Seriously,
thank you.
I like
Yeah,
that
thank you all for
story.
working with us on this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Cool. Well, Online Pony Fest is apparently, which is bigger than LooneyCon. Alright. Which is a pretty big convention. Online Pony Fest is doing another convention on the 25th of April, so I'm going to try to submit a panel. Y'all who I ended up not asking anyone on Fanfiction directly. I just texted all of you and was like, hey, you want to be in a panel? And y'all were like, sure. But I'll probably do it again. Maybe we can field questions ahead of time to give us more specific things to talk about. But until next time, I'll see you around.
Yeah.
See you around.
Feel free to ask me anytime to do this. So.
All right.
Wow. You're welcome. Go around.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you around.
Bye.
Yeah.